Anything else? Could it be interacting with the outside world?
Definitely. So our thoughts are very much connected to outside activity,
Okay.
information of all sorts. We
Okay.
really kind of, our thinking is really kind of bombarded with the thinking of everything around us.
Ah.
Or, right, like.
So it's interactive.
So it's very interactive. So
Okay.
there's a constant, like, sort of levels of dialogue going on, whether it be, you know, the bombardment of images in the world, information in the world. So there's like a multitude of information
Okay.
coming at us that tends to get into our thinking. So I've noticed that quite often is when we've been
So
we're not
busy.
only thinking our own thoughts, we're also thinking the thoughts that are coming in through outside.
Or the thoughts we think people think we should think.
Right.
Or at least I think so.
A lot of that.
Okay. Maintaining identity.
Yes.
That's an excellent one. Is that in thinking as well? Identity.
Could be part of that one.
Could too, yeah. Alright. Could it also be part of waking?
Yes. I am me. Here I am, I'm me waking up, and I'm still me.
Okay.
I'm here now.
Okay. So we've gone over a little bit of the conscious side of things. So before we go into the subconscious side of things, we came up with identity. Identity is a good way to know that I'm me, you're you, he's he, and she's she. So, who are you, Andy? What do you do?
Andy,
Mm-hmm.
and I do lots of stuff.
I get that about you. Cool.
I play flutes.
He does do that. Cool. So, who are you? Gray.
Gray.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a female.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I do get to be a mother.
Mm-hmm.
I do get to take care of families.
Mm-hmm.
And I also get to make art and be creative.
Cool.
And I dream.
And you dream. Awesome. Everybody here dream? Cool. Me too.
And I have a relationship with the sky.
Awesome.
With Earth.
Cool.
I feel that every day.
Very
Oh yes, that's me. That's me.
cool. So your identity extends beyond what you might experience as physical you.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Is that a good start?
My meanness, my grayness
Mhm.
can take, but I guess I want to stay conscious with myself. So, I experience different aspects of me throughout the week. So I can
Cool.
say that clearly. That's part of it's still very much part of my consciousness.
Cool.
It's really that flux in my personality.
Nice.
So that's an interesting thing to notice.
Mm-hmm.
Natural kind of meandering within your newness.
Yeah. Totally. That's fun.
Yeah, it is. Funny too sometimes.
Cool. What about you? Who are you?
I'm Jenny.
Mhm.
I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
I'm a creator.
Mhm.
Really, I like filling children's minds and inspiring them.
Okay.
I'm a business owner.
Mhm.
I'm a friend. As I was called, I was also a therapist, as I was called today.
Okay.
Um,
So would you say that your identity is largely defined by the things that you do and the people you interact with?
no.
No? It's an internal thing on who you are? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the outward stuff is other things that people know me as and can describe me to other people as.
Okay. So the outward stuff allows people to express who you are to somebody who doesn't know you.
Mhm.
So it's a transfer of identity.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's important to tune into, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. And I'm Tyrell. I'm a facilitator of many things. I write, and I write some more. And I observe people. And I observe myself using the same tools that I use to observe people. And from both of those, I actually refine and shift and flow my identity as it serves me to build who I am to who I'd like to be. So, now that you've gone over some of the conscious aspects of you, let's go into the subconscious aspects. So, Gray, you have unique experience in dreaming.
Yes.
Okay? So you want to describe a little bit what your experience is.
The funnest part, I think, of my dreamtime is that whatever it is, I can, I don't, it's a wonderful liberation of feeling tight in my skin and my form,
Okay.
because I can.
So liberation.
Yes.
That's a good word.
I would agree, yeah.
Okay. Freedom.
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
Timeless. I don't.
Timeless.
My age is many ages, all ages. It seems it can be anything. So there is no real age.
Okay.
I've noticed it seems to be kind of a game. Once you just, it's wherever your thoughts lead you. So for me, it's, I can experience many different ages.
Okay. So while your physical body is resting, what part of you is active? Your soul is active. Okay. So let's see, is that part of knowing? The soul?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else?
Nobody ever moves their lips in my dreams.
Nobody moves their lips in your dreams. But do you communicate with them?
Yes.
Okay. So is that part of knowing?
It's an emotional communication.
Emotional communication.
Nice.
An excellent point. And with that emotional communication, are you sure that you're getting the message?
As if I remember it, I'm waking.
Yeah.
So part of your knowing of truth is in your waking state. Okay? So the body is physically resting, but how is it similar to the active aspect of the body?
I can say one thing, there definitely are times where I feel when I wake up that my body didn't rest, and I mean like physically felt active
Okay.
through the night.
Okay.
And so I wake up and what?
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes you
Tired.
wake up and you just like,
Did I just walk all night or yeah.
well, I thought I just went to sleep, but maybe I didn't. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
is that
so
is
sometimes-
that part of the body's being active or the inward expression?
I think maybe the
That's a good question.
inward expression.
Okay.
I mean, is
So-
it possible that you could actually give yourself enough nerve induction through the night in your sleep that you stimulate your muscles to such a degree that you could wake up and kind of feel really like, oh, I think I feel like I just kind of ran around for about 2 hours.
Right? Yeah, so
So,
nerve induction, that's an important one to put in there for
Yeah.
resting. Also, everybody here knows that the brain actually produces a paralytic for the muscles so that you can sleep,
rest, so they don't move.
so they don't move.
Yeah.
So even though you have the nerve induction going, the muscles don't respond to that activity where they normally would. So the feeling that
It's a sensation.
you
maybe
did
rather
that
than- Yeah.
is different.
Uh-huh.
So, but have
Wow.
people experienced movement in dream state?
For sure. And people do move sometimes.
People do move.
Anyway.
So it probably gets to a point where you get to a certain level of dreaming
Yeah.
that there isn't movement, and then another level of dreaming and there is. Okay. So inward expressive movement. So
There's a symbiotic organism relationship between carbon-based animal forms
Mhm.
and our energy beings of cosmic origin,
Mhm.
and that dream time is a portal.
Cool. So metaphysically, dream time's a portal to, is it to resolve, to merge, to experience both simultaneously?
I would say for me, to charge in when we have limited possibility or limited actuality in our waking state,
Okay.
but we come from a field of infinite possibility. So we
Okay.
have to have an arena to choose and semi-play out what we're going to do, what energy we're going to finalize in our daily life.
So you can use your dream time in your waking time,
Yes.
or
Did the computer
to
hear me?
guide your waking existence. What's that?
Did the computer hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So again, it's sort of a very good way to get access to information or kind of a way of perceiving that normally you wouldn't necessarily have the same access to in your waking state. But
You might not pay attention to.
right.
So attention and choice both came up. And in consciousness, in waking state, you have the choice to make certain decisions throughout the day.
Right.
Okay. So choice is a big one. But you brought up something, perception.
Because definitely there are certain problems that can be solved, whether they're created, well, there's so many forms of creative, I guess they create something and you have to push it through, so, where suddenly flexible in this state,
Mhm.
so that you might be able to better understand how a certain problem or some idea might be further developed or better understood or solved.
Okay.
And then if you can practice decoding it once you've awoken, excuse me, then you can, that information can, it can carry over and still be understood in the
Okay.
waking state.
So.
I don't know if that makes sense. You know how sometimes we'll carry information into the waking state and it no longer makes sense,
Mhm.
but it did.
Right.
But there's enough of a feeling about it that you know it has a truth and it does make sense. It's just the inability of the waking mind to maybe properly understand it or decode
Comprehend
it.
it.
So you brought up important things. Making sense and feeling like truth.
Yes.
So, could it be possible that the subconscious mind, deals primarily with emotion, and the conscious mind primarily with thought and logic? Does anybody have a different view on it?
There could be some other things involved in the sleeping state, so that it could be a kind of combination of heart intelligence, like deep intelligence,
Or,
Okay.
well,
and
there's,
that you could be open so that you could also receive download information.
yeah, 'cause I know there's like times during the day where it's like, what just happened? What did I just do? I don't have the recollection because my subconscious took.
Yeah, all of a sudden jump
It's
to
like, wait,
front and center.
it's like, how did we get to this?
Well,
And it
what
kind of
would
feels like a
be-
blank spot happened.
Like a strange, quick waking dream.
Yeah.
What would be an example of
Yeah.
that?
Like, one day I was driving down this road, and next thing I know, it's like, oh, I'm at my destination.
Right.
It's like, last I remember, I was at this point. How did I get to here?
Yeah, and this is something a lot of people have experienced.
Yeah.
Where they've suddenly.
Yeah,
And I think
that,
it's
or
because-
I could be
Yeah.
at home doing one thing, and it's like I have something I need to do, and it's like.
I think that's something to do with non-locality of the mind.
Non-locality of the mind.
And this is not mine, certainly. I've been fascinated with people like Rupert Sheldrake, who's been big into this research,
Mhm.
which is a great perfect example. The mind, the consciousness has already actually traveled home,
Mhm.
and the body's just catching up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
And
it's
then you
happened
get
when I've
there
gone home
and
to
you're-
work,
Yeah.
to other places, like to the store. It's like, wait,
Yeah.
how did I get here?
This seems
It's like, how'd you get here today?
Mhm.
And I'm just like.
And it's, I
My
think it's
car?
more common than people realize.
Yeah.
I think we do that, and so.
And sometimes
yeah.
it's scary, especially like during rush hour
Mhm.
traffic, because all of a sudden I feel myself. It's like, whoa, wait a minute.
Okay.
Sometimes I can stop it
Right.
before it happens, and I know it's coming on. Other
So
times I can't.
you experience more than one identity simultaneously.
Yeah.
Ah.
You experienced your body as an identity, and you experienced your
Mind.
awareness,
Or awareness. Mhm.
your beingness, your identity as another entity. What do you have, Andy?
Memory.
Memory.
Ah.
A difference between a conscious memory or a subconscious memory. If my conscious memory is based on the activation of my physical senses through stimuli,
Mhm.
but still if my spirit is feeling, then I'm always feeling, and that is memory too.
Okay.
But
Yes.
if it doesn't in some form take some kind of a physical sense, like say in a dream, it may not translate into my body.
So, in consciousness, a physical memory and in subconsciousness an emotional memory?
I like feeling.
Feeling memory.
Yeah, feeling mind, it's like a different.
Oh, so a feeling mind.
I mean, you don't have to put mind, I don't wanna take away from what you had said, just to be clear, but I've
Well-
heard it, I've heard both, yeah.
Take it away.
So a
No,
feeling, so having a feeling mind.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so
'cause it's not.
this is identified as feeling.
Feelings.
And this is identified as physical.
Now, that's really interesting what you brought up though, the difference between conscious memory and subconscious memory.
Uh-huh.
This is just something that I was listening to last night, and I'm gonna forget his name, but it's okay.
That's fine.
He's a shaman.
Uh-huh.
And he was speaking about how that they tend to believe that it's not the experience itself that necessarily is the most, in terms of like when someone has a traumatic experience of some kind. The experience itself as it's happening, if it's, something they've been able to get through and survive, certainly intact, it's not that so much which becomes the sort of the injury of the person that you're feeling, but it's the memory
Right.
that starts to be, that has more of an influence on the health of the body and the mind.
So the feeling memory versus the physical memory.
Yeah, and I think that they were trying to tie that into that the memory of the experience that was challenging or whatever, or intense, is what tends to find a place to hang out on a cellular level.
Right.
So we have that cellular memory, and maybe the memory of this particular experience, we put it in our liver. So that like every time that's stimulated in some way, it kind of tends to have more of an effect.
Right.
And that's where you can, you have people, it can become kind of detrimental for them.
Right.
And it can produce suffering of some kind. But that they were saying that it was more about the memory of the trauma rather than the event itself.
Okay.
And I thought that was an interesting notion.
Right. Totally.
Yeah, again, just because of this conscious versus
versus the subconscious. So when we experience one or the other, what part of us is experiencing it?
When
we experience either the subconscious or the conscious mind, what part of us experiences that?
Same part.
Yeah.
The whole us.
The whole us, yeah.
So these are parts of a whole? Or is it beyond that? Does the whole be comprised of these, or is there something that's beyond both of these that's experiencing them?
I definitely could say, like for example, backing up for a moment, when people all of a sudden see themselves at their destination already, because for whatever reason they want to get there, whether it be home or some place that their destination, preference with. So okay, you have the non-local kind of experience of the mind going there already. So okay, take it to the next level. Who's the observer of the mind? Who is that observer?
Yeah.
Now, I wonder, like, is that soul or is that spirit?
Okay. So those are a couple of definitions for him. Is there, Andy, do you have any other definitions for what would be the observer of the consciousness or the subconsciousness?
Well, millennia-old question.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can define it in 5 minutes, yeah. Pass?
Pass totally works. So it's a large question.
Is that an egg inside an egg inside an egg that you're talking about?
Could it be? Right? Because the one definition, spirit or soul, would say that this this energy, this essence, this being has the ability to experience this physicality. And in experiencing this physicality enters the awareness of the workings of the mind and the awareness of the workings of the body, and in this experience performs whatever it was meant to perform, and then it's complete and it leaves, and it's not connected to or existing within any of the parts necessarily,
Right.
but inhabiting and aware and
Mm-hmm.
able to observe all of them.
Yes, I think that feels right.
Okay. So sounds versus feels right. You made a choice there.
Kind of a little bit of both.
Okay.
I like the way you put it.
Okay.
And then also felt it feels right, but yeah,
Okay.
like, yeah.
Well, my question would be, how much of our dreams, the characters and plots and places in our dreams are in internally constructed reality, or us tapping into someone else's energy?
Oh.
So that's another key one, internally constructed reality. I like that you bring that up. And you also brought up energy.
So like the creator of this all. So could we safely say that the conscious is like, that's really the domain of the ego?
Okay.
And maybe the
So what does ego look like? Are we talking Freud? Are we talking new, the new age version of ego?
You were talking Nabisco?
Just possibly. Ego, like oh my ego.
I think of ego and I think of like, I like the way the Eastern cultures like to express ego.
Okay.
Of course, that would take a long time to get that definition, but I'm thinking everyone here's
As Andy said,
fairly.
millennial question, let me see if
Yeah.
I can cover it in 5 minutes.
Right, but well, so what is it, the 10,000-headed hydra? And here's all kinds
Good
of
start.
cool, colorful expressions
Mhm.
for ego. I think the ego is in the subconscious too.
Okay, so the subconscious has ego.
I think it can be in there too.
So
Yes.
what
I don't think you necessarily leave the land of ego completely.
what would be maybe a one sentence definition of ego?
Ooh.
Or one paragraph, whatever works.
Well, I would put it this way, in the beginning of John, as in the beginning was the logos,
Mhm.
like the word or the conversation. I
Okay.
like the conversation. The beginning was the conversation. So I like the thought of a lack of communication and a lack of communion.
Okay.
Then creates darkness, and the ego is just the collapse of that communion in on oneself.
Ah, so rather than an outward flowing communication that's reciprocated and moving into itself, it's isolated itself and is flowing into itself.
That's an interesting concept.
Okay.
Very interesting.
That works, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because have we all experience the ego mind.
Indeed.
And the various conversations that it carries on.
Oh, yeah.
In the Jewish tradition, they call it the evil inclination, which is that part of ourselves to move away from
Yeah.
the energy of God.
Yeah.
So is the conversation in the subconscious expansive or is it internal?
That's the question.
I would tend to think it seems to want to get a little more expansive with itself. I don't,
Could it be both?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have to make a choice, but
Exactly.
the opportunity to choose presents itself. Choice shows up again. So this could be internal and external. And it could combine the two and be flowing and infinite. What about the conscious mind? Does it have that same flexibility?
I think it could.
Okay.
Again, I think there's still.
Have you experienced the conscious mind with that kind of flexibility?
Where it chooses to be extremely sort of expressive.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would probably say yes.
Because doesn't the conscious mind, isn't it able to come up with quibs and jabs and
It
things
wants to
like that?
externalize
It wants to externalize what's going
yes,
on.
and categorize and
Right.
put things in places and
Doesn't it also
this,
want to
that.
sort the information that's coming in?
And sort it.
So they're both fairly similar in the ways that they interact. They can both be internal and external, carry on the conversation. They rely upon choice, and choice in a lot of cases looks like a physical choice, and in the subconscious a feeling choice. So there was this line here to separate them. Are they really that separate?
In my shamanic training, no. In other words, now like I said, training, not just that it's not simply philosophy. What? Oh, let me back up. We go into a dreamlike place and open up a space that is invisible, and we can use totems or objects, whatever, to represent things, but it's still a conversation with ourselves and with light workers, beings outside the physical, which is primarily the mainstay of a shamanic or medicine work, communication with the spirit world. And so, at least what I've been trained under is to give and receive energy gifts, which can provide a kind of encapsulated dream in and of itself, which then can translate into my physicality. But I say training because it can also there is a difference, and that's where feeling has to come in, because you can just as easily invent an image that is an illusion and try to fill someone with an illusion that seems real, but it just doesn't have a feeling to it, and so it doesn't mean that every single dream is part of the phenomenal world. So there is training to separate the difference, and also to have responsibility to provide something of substance. feeling.
I feel like there's a discernment, yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a really good point, actually, because you often see how that gets really blurred, especially with different groups of people who are practicing some spiritual work or, you know.
I experienced both in the same group.
Yeah.
So this line between the two is navigable. You can get on either side of it. You can experience both simultaneously. But when you experience both simultaneously, does it last very long?
Well, this is where I bring in law of attraction.
Okay.
In the sense that whatever does not really match my own vibration doesn't stick with me. And those images or thoughts or dreaminess or whatever, if it's just an image, a mental image or imagination image, and it doesn't have a feeling, and it doesn't match with my vibes, my frequency, or if I don't accept it, it simply stays in that realm or goes away or passes. And so
So it's a choice in your reality.
I forgot the question.
In fact, I was going to know.
Could I better explain
Like the whole, okay, when you experience both, you see both?
Yeah, both.
Okay. How long does it tend to last?
Oh.
So, like, do you mean like one
Well, there's a reason that the question is tricky.
Okay.
Because one operates on linear time, the other operates on non-linear time.
Well, okay, okay.
So there's a reason there's a bit of a cognitive dissonance, because one is determining time and its relation to space. The other one is determining space and its relation to time. Which is why, have you had the most profound, amazing dream, and it takes 5 minutes out of linear time?
Right.
Yet, an entire day can seem like an eternity in the subconscious, or in the feeling part of the mind. So, have you been able to quantify how long you've been both simultaneously?
Okay, this I can say. And it's been certainly, I'm sure my friends, but, one time, it was very important for me to remember certain things that happened to me in my life. And so basically, by the time my head hit the pillow and I closed my eyes and went to sleep, I was looking off into this lifetime. And the lifetime literally lasted from that moment till the moment I basically went back into my body, realized, okay, now I get to wake up. But I was already conscious, so it was literally just sat up. And so in 8 hours of dreaming, I experienced a large part of a complete lifetime.
Right.
And with a lot of information.
Right.
And a lot of, stimulated in many different ways. And my ego had to go through dying. And the fear of, like, dying in a way where, it was, I had no control.
And doesn't the ego want to have control?
Exactly. So it's like, what happens, for example, like if you die in a bits, still stay you? Do you, am I still me?
Okay.
And yes was the answer.
Okay.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't, that's okay too.
Okay.
But definitely there was that, I don't know if that answers the question. Is it,
It
so.
answers it in your definition of it. And that's
Yeah.
what counts.
Okay. Yeah, so that was a lot of living in 8 hours.
Mhm. Well, and Jenny mentioned earlier that she experienced time jumps
Oh, yeah.
and slowing of time.
Yes.
Anybody here been in a traumatic experience?
Oh, yes.
And details are sharper and
Incredible.
time seems to slow down.
Yeah.
Does it actually slow down?
I think we just step a little bit further away from linear time when we get a little closer to all time.
Because isn't it
You get
based
to
on
see-
perspective?
I think so.
Where you're viewing
Depending on where you're viewing.
certain events from.
Yeah.
And Einstein actually went into relativity, wherein your location, the speed of things, determined how you experience time. Time experienced on a train moving past you versus you on that train versus
Right.
a bystander observing you observing
Uh-huh.
the time on the train, so on and so forth.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it is relative to where you experience yourself from.
Right. That's very true because we all know what it's like. I think probably I think it's safe to say no one's been on an airplane once. And it's a pretty trippy thing when you're looking down and you're seeing suddenly everything moving
Still.
really slow.
Yeah.
And even the coastline can cease to move and look like a picture
Mhm.
rather than something that's moving.
Right.
So yeah. That's fascinating.
Cool. So is everybody here open to experiencing a little bit of merging the two so that you can actually use it?
I'm joking. I would
What
really
is-
like to create a bridge.
Where were we supposed to split the two to begin with? Because I'm still not understanding the question.
Okay. So the question was, can you experience both at the same time?
A dream and a waking?
Mhm.
I'd say yeah.
Okay. How?
Well, okay, waking, I went to see the Dead Sea Scrolls and the same thing Gray described.
Okay.
For a second time I went, I was in and out of sleep. I sat there, I was awake, but asleep at the same time.
Mhm.
But awake, but asleep.
Lucid.
Yeah, but came to and felt like I had gone to communicate with one of my ancestors.
Okay.
There was this whole experience where I've discussed before, won't go into detail, or last summer I thought something, like I was going through this entire hallucination that just wasn't happening.
Right.
But it was feeling based. I don't know how to put a time scale to it, but I was awake.
Okay.
But
So truth was experienced separately in two different instances. And when you were in each of those instances, there was no question about the truth of being awake or being in the experience. But when you went to merge the two and combine them, you ran into dissonance. You ran into things that didn't line up.
I had to go into the feeling of it.
Okay?
Okay.
So tuning in and trusting the feeling of things.
Yeah. That's very cool.
Okay.
Well, like everybody would tell me, go into your heart.
Okay. Is that where you experience the truth of feeling?
all intents and purposes, sure.
Okay.
I'd say it's
Well, is there an expectation that that's where you experience the feeling from?
I would experience everywhere.
Okay. So you can experience feeling in your entire body to know whether it's truth.
I'd say yes.
Okay. So would that be like a resonant frequency with your physical body?
The truth, or there's a simple knowing, which is just an obvious sounding declarative statement or just a sense in the back.
Okay.
And then I pay attention to that. I learn to listen to the simple cues and to listen and not project, but listen.
Okay. So listening and feeling and experiencing are part of truth. Okay. Are there other ways to experience truth?
I feel truth as a kind of a sacral
Sacral.
feeling.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like a
I
gut
feel that
feeling.
definitely, yeah.
Okay. Does
Yes.
it feel grounding? Does it
Yes.
feel secure?
I feel it feels grounding, and it feels like I kind of get to go to that core self.
Okay. Cool.
It's kind of like ageless.
Right.
In language.
Okay. So
Nice.
non-linear time. Okay. How do you experience truth?
It changes, like sometimes I'll get like a buzz or a ring in my ear.
Okay.
Sometimes it's the gut.
Okay.
Sometimes you just know, I don't know how to explain it, it's just you get the feeling that it's true.
Where
You know,
would you
that's
say that you get the feeling?
Like inside, like here.
So does the feeling have to be in your body?
No. Yeah.
Okay.
For me, yeah, it does.
Okay. So for you to experience truth, you have to have the feeling in your body.
Some of the times, or like within, if it, my mind connects with it enough.
That's a good point, though, that you said that sometimes it's even like a ringing or a buzzing.
Okay.
Because that is another way that I'll experience the truth. So I don't know, is that a bodily thing, or is that something outside kind of
Yeah.
making it
Exactly.
Yeah.
That seems almost more of a hello of, yep, you're on the right track.
Mhm.
Kind of thing.
So
Rather
what
than
seems
coming
to have
from
come up
inside.
is that your conscious mind experiences your body, and your subconscious mind doesn't have to be within your body.
Right. There's other areas of the mind.
And the environment
And the
that it can
environment
experience.
yeah.
So a non-localized identity.
Yes.
Cool. Could be useful. Hello.
Hi.
So with that awareness, with that experience, how do we merge the two and produce results? Because haven't all of us in dream space produced the results that were desirable within a dream?
Yeah.
I want to do this thing, and this thing happens. In waking state, there's no possible way that this thing could happen, and yet in dream state, it's part of it. So.
Yeah, shamanic work again. Is that the energy gift, or the energy work is designed to re-inform the body on an energy level, and it's physically, but in its frequency to reorient itself.
Okay.
So that it would travel down a different path, a
Okay.
different intention, and therefore making physical life and consciousness itself a malleable dream instead of, or a lucid dream instead of just a reaction to the stimuli and the information we were given by both sides of our parentage and society, but to give us the act of creation.
Okay.
But
So you didn't mention malleable dream, and then you shifted it. Is there some part of you that says that the waking dream, the dream that we're all experiencing right now, is not malleable? It's not shiftable, it's not changeable.
Malleable / lucid?
So it can be both.
Well, in my dream state, if there is the question of the characters, how many of them are created in my own head, how many of them are me tapping into someone else. But in the waking state, I'm definitely tapping into someone else.
Okay.
Right.
And so we're trying to combine two dreams out in common space, or more.
Right. So can it be done?
Yes.
Okay.
also, like, if you have a dream, sometimes that dream can become reality.
Oh, definitely.
Because I've had dreams where something happened and it did. Or like I got the feeling something was going to be happening, like someone was hurt in a certain spot, or someone got hurt, or I knew the exact spot. Around the location it would happen, the place it would happen at, like where they'd be at, like in the vicinity area. And then it's like, oh,
I think it's because you already went there. And then you know what I mean? It's like you're in all time again.
yeah.
And then so you go there. And then of course then you wake up, and then it happens in linear time.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, I already went there.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of time. Maybe
So,
is that a type of time travel?
couldn't it be? And wouldn't certain aspects say that, you know, you can't time travel, especially not to the past? You can't be in more than one place at the same time, because those are aspects
That's
of
funny. I've even heard the flip of that. You can go to
physical.
the past, but you can't go to the future.
Right.
So it's an interesting
Yeah.
quandary.
Right. So,
Yeah.
but then we're getting into the rules, the laws that we've operated by have the possibility to be shiftable, changeable, malleable. We can interact with them.
I think it is
Yeah.
malleable. I think it seems to me that the more we seem to understand more about the nature of consciousness and physics as well that we're learning, which you can certainly call them, that there is definitely something, it seems like this whole morphogenic kind of plastic.
Quantum probability matrix.
Yeah, it seems like that tends to keep rearing up, that tends to be an attribute, definitely a big way that we might describe the nature of the universe, and it is, I mean, at least it's going that route.
Right.
So far, that it's bendable, that it's malleable, it's morphs.
Okay. So, each one of us have mentioned either a journey into the past or a journey into future events. If you were able to be aware of those things in a conscious reality
While you're waking?
while you're awake,
Okay.
so you're getting into the realm of metacognition, which means that you are becoming aware of your thoughts, becoming aware of your interactions in the space, in the infinite space of now that you're interacting with them. Could you consciously choose something different? have you consciously chosen something different?
Like when you see choose something different, are you meaning like I'm choosing, for example, to talk to a woman that I like this,
Mhm.
and then it happens.
Okay.
So could that be an example of consciously choosing?
That's
Today I
consciously
will
choosing
speak
to go find
to
that
someone
person
about this,
and say something
and
to
it's
them.
gonna happen somehow,
But what
organically.
about in the middle of it?
Okay.
Can you
So
do
enter-
anything to shift or change or flow that?
Like, as in, if I'm in the middle of maybe speaking to a person who I've asked to come into my space for the day.
Mhm.
Okay, and then it happens.
Mhm.
A person, okay, let's say, for example, you're sitting here, okay, and then we're in the midst of engaging,
Mhm.
and then and what was the question again?
Can you, in the middle of that,
Yeah.
shift that
How?
and have a different experience, a different result, a different kind of interaction?
I suppose I could if I wanted to.
Haven't you practiced it a bunch of times?
Yeah.
Haven't you done it a bunch of times?
I think the thing is we repeat things so much, it seems, anyway, with each other, interpersonally.
Mhm.
Speaking, I mean, that we can, how many times have we been in almost the same, very similar situation, and just because of where we're at, and maybe what we dreamt that night before, we choose to interact with that person like this, instead of maybe a little bit more like that,
Mhm.
the last time. And suddenly, something else happens.
Right.
Whether it be positive or negative, it just changes.
Right.
It changes the outcome.
And does that also from there change the next
Outcomes.
experience that you
Yes,
have
'cause then you see
and
the
your
ripple effect.
internal dialogue
Yes.
and the information that you have
Yes.
from there?
'Cause you have
So
different information, yeah.
this book is entitled 10,000 Dreams Explained. Who here believes that they've had at least that many?
Oh, for sure.
So this very small book says that you can find an explanation to 10,000 dreams within here.
But I don't feel that could be connecting, just because I had something along the same lines doesn't mean it's the same answer.
I agree. And what would make those answers different than your answers?
Because that's their experience.
Ah.
Yes.
Doesn't mean
So-
doesn't mean mine is the same experience.
Okay.
It could have a
So
lot of the similar things, but doesn't mean it's the same.
gets back to the inward expression.
That's true, because again, we're all unique little fragments of the greater whole.
Right.
So we all get to have a unique,
But in writing a book or in sharing,
experience. Yes.
do we not co-create a reality based on our unique perspectives?
Yes.
Because
Where is it co-creating sense here? Is that, are you saying like, are they compatible?
but you
Like-
just co-creating at the same time. So you just found a way to express internal things simultaneously with external things.
Oh.
Co-creating a reality.
Co-creating a reality.
Because if you try to go and change this book into a lizard,
Yes.
do you believe that this book is a lizard?
I do now, you're very convincing.
Okay. Do you believe this book is a lizard?
It's possible.
Okay. It's possible.
Possible. It's
You don't
definitely
believe me,
possible.
but it's possible.
It's possible.
Okay.
It could
Do
be.
you believe that this book is a lizard?
Nope, it's a tree.
So,
So there you go.
we have cognitive dissonance.
Okay.
But every single time I asked, I said that this is a book.
Okay.
I told you this is a book.
That's
Every
right.
time.
It's the first thing you
It's
did.
the
This
book.
is the book.
Is it a lizard? Nope. Maybe? Yep. You're convincing? It's a tree. Still a book. We haven't changed it
Actually,
from a
you're
book.
right.
It's a
There's
two-meaning
always
word.
a core vibe to every person, a core frequency that does not change.
Okay.
So there's a core frequency. Explain that to.
A core frequency, well, your essential
Yeah.
self, your sense of spiritual self. That's where I get a conflict of where are we a non-self that is essentially just an illusion of a flow of energy that is in itself singular, and we are merely dream people that disappear somewhere or blip in and out? Or are we our own um, selves, our own self uh, self-contained units with our own core frequencies, our own core energy that pick up on a different outer shell and such?
Yes.
So
I think they're
energy
both.
comes up in both of them. So while none of us here were able to change this into anything but a book, energetically, I could feel a lizard out of here. She can feel a tree out of it. You can feel the possibility of a lizard. Does it change it?
Does it change the book?
Does it?
No.
But if I'm able to feel something other than this being a book, is that real?
Yeah, I think it's both again. I think it's sort of like there is a sort of a subtle self, but it's not the kind of self that the ego wants us to think.
Okay.
And so we get to kind of be, there's this sort of subtle self, maybe that's what the soul is. But then at the same time, we are all also spirit, which is really, you know, one thing. And again, which goes back to the holograph idea.
Okay.
So like each, right? So that's the thing, it's like each piece of the holograph contains the whole.
So it's a fractal.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are experiencing fractal consciousness.
I feel it's kind of like the cube too, the cube explanation of where we only see certain parts of it,
Yeah.
but somebody else will see a different perspective.
Right.
So in the first episode of Emotional Think Tanks, we went into how you have the cube of perception.
Okay.
Ramon's explanation of the word cube.
Or Ramon's explanation of the board cube. So with the cube of perception, which we went over in karmic processing, you are able to see at most 3 sides of it.
Right.
And yet, from those 3 sides, you extrapolate that that is a cube.
Yes.
Because you saw the other 3 sides at some point in time.
Right.
And you assume that those 3 sides still exist, but you don't see them.
Do you think it's also kind of a thing with the waking brain that it automatically finishes the picture?
Develops object permanence.
Yes.
One
It's
of the
like
very
with
first
words.
things that we learn as baby humans
Yes.
is that even though we can't see it, it's still there.
Right.
If we learn something different, would we have a different experience?
I also feel that it's like
Okay. Now, does this give it to this interesting place for, okay, now I've heard some cool different types of examples. One of them was, like, for example, a group of indigenous people hundreds of years ago, for the first time seeing sort of really strange looking clouds floating along the ocean, and just saying, those are really interesting, unique and different looking clouds. But then once these funny looking foreigners came over to them and introduced themselves, they realized when the next time they saw the same image, they were like, oh, it's a boat. And they could see it.
Right.
So that there's something about if you've never had the experience of something in a physical body in a waking state,
Yeah.
then you might not even perceive it.
Right.
So your brain can't, I don't know if this that seems to fit into a
Yes,
little bit of what we're talking
absolutely.
about here.
So much of our waking state is really just referencing emotional bookmarks.
Yes. I also think of it as, when you look at words, you can have letters that are missing.
Yeah.
Or ones that are it's all jumbled up. You can have any letter wherever it is, and you could still figure out what the word is.
It's true.
And why is that?
Yeah.
Because our brain, I don't know, I think it's because our brain knows all the letters, and we are able to piece it together, like, oh,
Yeah.
this goes here, it's like a mapping, you can go, oh, this.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the
You
brain
fit it
can
in.
only see parts of it, or they're in a different order, and yet it builds
Yeah.
the reality.
Or when you replace the letter with the
based
numbers,
on
you can still
the
formulate
image.
what it was.
But then that would be creating the ego. And I think of the ego as the projections of other people, the two-dimensional projections that I get back from the world that I'm thinking of, and that's the illusion.
Okay.
That is the communal dream time to me.
Okay.
But I do have a question from that. So let's say that someone comes up to me and says that they were talking to me in vision or in their dream. How would I tell if they're really were talking to me
You.
or an imagined me?
Okay.
Ah,
Do the people know you?
good question.
Yes, but how well?
Right.
Okay. So that gets into it. So for you, how would you know that was true?
Well, I would guess
Would you recall the experience along with them? Oh yeah, I remember when you said that in the dream.
But I didn't have the dream, or if I wasn't consciously connected to it, then I'd have to go into my feeling.
Okay.
Because if it feels like me, and I've had that happen, with a positive or not positive feeling, I definitely have to go into my feeling or my dreamlike
Yeah.
space.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have to go back into my dream space.
So you can
Extraordinary
actually
space.
you can reference conscious material in the subconscious state or in the dream time space so that you can actually find resolution. So it doesn't have to just be dream time brought into waking or the communal dream. It can be communal dream brought into the individual dream, which can turn into a communal dream. So the learning, the information, the awareness, the experience can be transferable between either one.
It's a really interesting phenomenon though, because even just recently someone said, hey, I dream timed you. You came into my dream and helped me out of a really, really difficult situation.
I had somebody say the same thing to me.
Yeah. So, and this tends to happen, you know,
And
enough times to where it's obviously a phenomenon.
yeah.
Going
Well,
on.
and as Andy brought up, how do you know
Right.
that is you,
Right.
who you define you as? And this is another thing.
Is it my
Who does Jenny define me as? Who does Jenny define you as? Or Andy, or who do each of us identify each of us as? And is it that identification, that mirroring, that shows up in our subconsciousness? Or is it the actual individual? And if it is the actual individual, how is that possible if the individual was somewhere else?
Okay, so maybe part of that was what I was gonna ask, actually. So maybe part of non-locality can be a kind of a omnipresent
Okay.
ability?
So could your energy...
Could we possibly be able to do that?
Yeah. Could your energy be infinite, and therefore infinitely dividable?
Right.
And therefore infinitely experienceable in its whole, because it's the fractal.
Right. Exactly.
And
exactly.
could that be true?
If maybe that's, like we hear all the time when it's like religious figures or an angel, the angel Gabriel or the angel Michael, which everyone seems to be a popular angel.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, probably millions of people call upon and feel the presence of Michael in the same day.
Yeah.
So
at the same time, even
at the same
linearly.
time. Yeah.
Okay. So gets back into, is it real?
Well, he's a fairy.
Well, there you go.
I'll name a situation. At work, there was a young woman, and I had this entire spiritual experience that we were in fact soulmates, and I needed to get together. I mean, a whole spiritual experience that I, that, and revelation, information on her, and the entire thing was not true. But I experienced it spiritually. I experienced it in any way that anyone else, that I would experience spiritually, and anyone else would experience spiritually. But in the actuality, it was not true.
Okay.
And I kept feeling pressed or impressed upon me, the need to go up to her, talk to her, this is the way it is, this, that. But I keep saying, no, I don't feel this is right. No, I don't feel this is right. And then the entire thing was an illusion. I even had the experience where it seemed like there was a kind of telepathy going on between me and her that wasn't happening.
Okay.
And
So you're convinced it wasn't?
What?
So you're definitely sure you've
Oh,
come to that conclusion
well,
that
when she had a
definitely
boyfriend,
not.
it was kind of...
Oh, well, yeah, but still, even so, I don't know, do you think that it's possible? That can still be?
So here's another
Just
thing.
not in this lifetime?
No.
No.
Or
Okay.
in this reality.
Right. You mean like a different life? No, like a different timeline?
Different timeline. Parallel reality.
Parallel reality.
While it's not true here,
Right.
it was true somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's true with another person, I'm sure. It's that playing on experience perhaps with someone else out there, the lesson involved, the meaning actually behind the experience, making it a truth, and but the particulars of it, in that instance, in that time and space, the particulars were rendered it an illusion.
Right.
However, in the frequency of it, there was truth to it.
Okay.
So
There's a lot of energy around you when you're talking about that, by the way.
yeah,
Really?
Yeah, you're getting. Is that why you're itching? Because it's all right there.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't see it.
Yeah. Well, that was good because you went right to it.
Yeah. Well, and so this is the other thing, is that you have an awareness of this being reality. And when you're in that other reality, that's one example, that was real. That was truth. That was practice. Another thing that is a possibility is that you weren't you in the reality that you were experiencing. You were the person having the experience, but not you as you identify yourself in this reality.
Okay.
So the dissonance that you're cognitive dissonance in this general region, could be because you're experiencing a disconnect from who you experience yourself as. And who you experience yourself as right now, Andy, this body, this timeline, this thought pattern, these kind of things. An experience that I'm called to share with all of you is I experienced in dream time people surrounded in bubbles, and the people in their bubbles had different frequencies, and I experienced them in that frequency, and I experienced my essence, my energy outside of that frequency, without any association with one or the other.
Okay.
And the experience was that bubble, and everybody had their own bubble, and the bubbles where they overlapped and interacted, they created things, right? But when they were separate, when they didn't overlap, that bubble created the entire reality that individual experienced. Very existential. I experienced that as truth while I was in Dreamscaping. And I experienced myself as removed from each of those chosen frequencies, because they were not me.
You were the observer.
I was the observer, but I could participate in any of those frequencies.
Well, I've been on past life forums for many years, and I've been through trying to uncover my own kind of past life identities. And one thing has remained constant is that even though somebody might pick up on some identity or other, and I've been on both sides of the fence, my core self never changed.
Okay.
And in fact, when I picked up, say, an identity that maybe I was not remembering correctly, or I was going into a archetypal identification, misidentification, whatever, picking up on someone else, my claims, my memories, my experiences didn't match historical references, or didn't have consistency through time, or there were other reasons. No, not like a parallel self or a parallel universe. I mean, there are other reasons, emotional reasons, that resonated. Or trying to grasp onto something to fill in the gaps, without without it having to be literal happening.
Okay.
So it didn't have to be me, but it was still connecting some dots by tapping into that, but it still was
Oh.
not me.
Interesting, okay.
So, by experiencing something that wasn't necessarily true, you were still able to find nuggets that were true.
Yes.
Aspects that did resonate true and did give you useful information for the time that you got to experience it.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I've experienced stuff in dream state and even in conscious state that I knew wasn't true. And yet, the feeling felt true. So the physical events didn't match, but the feeling did.
Oh.
So that could be another way of experiencing reality as we define
Okay.
it.
That just happened.
Mhm.
It's like,
So,
Another thing I want to bring up, when someone comes up and, to me, very typical for me would be going down somewhere alone and sitting under a tree and just feeling, and not thinking at all and just feeling the bliss.
okay.
But if I walk in somewhere and let's say, I am coming out of work or there's some issues or I'm worried about money and I'm just letting it run,
Mhm.
but I'm just feeling great and got a muffin and just feeling blissful, and I walk in and hear someone, "Hi, I'm a psychic," and you think too much and you're really judgmental, or and then you got some energy there behind you, and here's some ancestor of yours saying something, or some piece of your, or it starts giving this reading and this plethora of information.
Mhm.
No, I just answered choice. Choice makes it
Yeah.
better than that.
Well, and that's another thing too, is projecting versus receiving reality. So they were projecting their reality upon you, and you had the choice whether to project your reality upon them, to receive their reality, or to do neither.
yeah.
So,
And how much are we really communicating with each other?
Yeah, really. There's a whole lot of conversations with ourselves through other people.
Yeah.
And so when we see, I think a lot of times, we see it's every time I'm outside and I see people I don't know pass by me and whoever I come into contact with, there's that moment of what are the pictures that we share or don't share, or maybe conflicting pictures,
Mhm.
which suddenly can lead to a little bit of this conversation with yourself that you think you're having a conversation or an interaction with the other person,
Right.
but what you're really doing is kind of reconfirming some kind of bouncing of it,
They're reflecting.
yeah, they're reflecting something.
Okay. So reflecting or absorbing, projecting or receiving,
Yes.
broadcasting or receiving. Other words
Yes.
that we
There's
can
that
use
choice.
to have choice.
Yes.
So could we, on a non-conscious level, have people come into our lives to remind us of the things that we're not currently conscious of,
Absolutely.
to bring us forward
All the time.
in the path that we choose?
Indeed. In fact, if anything, one thing I first learned when I first started doing readings is whatever you're dealing with yourself, parts of your ego, psyche, whatever,
Mhm.
is, it's amazing how it gets reflected, or it gets reflected, but
Mhm.
how it comes right to you through, it seems like the reads that you get.
Mhm.
It's like, you could, I mean, I could, it's almost like you could almost win bets off of how accurate it is. It's,
So it's
oh,
predictable.
it's almost predictable.
Okay.
Like, okay, I'm really dealing with this thing, or maybe I'm not dealing with this thing, but it's, here it is hanging out in my shoulder blade or
Right.
whatever. And so walked in today, and then another person walked in, and all these people could be totally different age brackets, cultural background, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
They'll come in and somehow that will be stimulated,
Mhm.
whether I'm conscious about it or not.
Okay. So energetically, people are interacting with people.
Absolutely.
Okay. Have we all experienced that? So knowing that we interact energetically.
Definitely. Great example is go do some grocery shopping.
Right. Go do some grocery shopping, go into a public place, be stopped on the street,
Yeah.
and have somebody tell you energetically, this is all the stuff that's going on in your life, and here's what you get. An impromptu reading, if you will, or impromptu projection.
Mhm.
So, what are some things that we can do to have the experience that we choose to have? Because we've
Yeah.
come into choice.
It's into, and what is your truth?
Okay.
Do you choose to,
So,
is the, you know, okay, like, is this really true about myself?
mhm.
Whatever
So
that is.
knowing your truth has a lot to do with your choice.
I think so.
Or whether you accept other people's choices as interacting with you. So we went over to where and how to know your truth. So, is that a good starting point?
Well, both conscious and the subconscious ultimately derives from within.
Okay.
So who I am at my core self is then the basis to build off of. Otherwise, I tend to feel, or have tended to feel, even in identity, like it's going to the identity store
Mhm.
and window shopping,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and then pretending, even for years, and not realizing it, because maybe I wanted popularity, or I wanted I want that new pair of shoes, I want that new car, I
Mhm.
want that, well, maybe I was a rich person in a past life,
Mhm.
so therefore, or the identity reflects desire, but it's still very external.
Mhm.
But then I get into my inner stuff, or if I ask spirit, um, then things that are, or it's like getting a shirt that fits.
Yeah.
It just fits, it works, but it's not what I would have imagined.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
I mean, I have put together my own little medicine bag, my own little shamanic bag. I would not have guessed that I could put something like that together so easily. So that must
Mhm.
be an indication that that's true to my core.
Okay.
Whereas putting together all kinds of books or musical instruments or painting supplies, whatever, to try to be somebody or trying to head around places, I don't know who I was trying to be,
Mhm.
and it doesn't take off, I might have been convinced within myself that this was true,
Mhm.
and had all kinds of feelings, etc., 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 but it's just there, it's not bearing any fruits.
Right.
It's not seamless, it's not easy, and it's not cycling.
So all of those could be indicators on whether you're experiencing truth or not. So not just on an internal, but on an external level, you can experience the truth of your interactions. The applicability of what you're what you're out to do, to experience, to share who you are. If who you are is not producing the results, is it really who you are?
Yeah.
Are those really the results that you want? Do you have full choice and awareness of the reality that you find yourself in? So these are questions that you can ask yourself when you know, so that you have a resonant indicator. I know that this is who I am. How do I know? Well, this and this and this and this and this. Maybe even have a list of how you know who you are. Have it readily available to you, whether it's here or written down, or you share it with someone that you share an intimate connection with. This is who I am. If you experience me in a different way, let me know.
Yeah.
Because couldn't having that mirror, having that reflection, having that other person holding the frequency serve? Couldn't knowing the frequency, regardless of where you find yourself, knowing the energy, the awareness, the results, serve you? So that if somebody comes up to you on the street, or you find somebody saying, hey, I dreamtimed with you and this happened, does it resonate with who you are? Does it resonate with how you know truth? And if it's not resonating with who you are and how you know truth, then you don't have to accept it.
No, you don't.
You can choose whatever you choose. Doesn't mean that you have to tell the other person. No.
No, it doesn't. Exactly.
Can you choose to? Absolutely.
Definitely.
So, if part of your being truth, or being true to your core, is telling people when your reality doesn't match up with theirs, then do that. And if it doesn't, then no. So it gets into a realm of supreme conscious choice and awareness that anything and everything is possible. Is it all practical? Is it all experienceable? Is it all readily available? Maybe, maybe not. But it's all possible.
Possible.
So,
Mm-hmm.
anybody have anything that they feel they get to add? They're pretty much complete.
I think that sounds like a fun trip.
Right?
That was a cool trail we just walked
Yeah.
on.
Twirled around a little
meandered
bit.
around there.
Dodged a few squirrels, whatever.
Yeah.
Cool.
I guess that actually kind of brings us back.
How do you orient yourself on the open ocean?
Exactly.
Landmarks.
Yeah. That was the big trick when, for example, this lifetime that there's something here, a watery this.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, there's no reference
Yep.
of anything.
Well, that's when you treat life like a giant etch-a-sketch for doodling.
Right.
And so what I did is it was like a keyhole effect. I just kind of went in. It was like I became a black hole, and then I wanted to reemerge.
Well, and
Right.
referencing outside of yourself in those instances may be useful. For instance, Nassim Haramein
Oh, okay.
says that a black hole is one side
Of
the equation,
yes.
and on the other side is creation.
Yeah.
A white hole.
White
And he
hole.
actually spells it with a W.
Yeah.
Whole. It's complete.
Nice.
So that's another way.
Very
As
cool.
you said, how you find your bearing when you're out on the open ocean. Look up, stars,
Yeah.
constellations.
Yeah.
Without the knowledge or awareness of those stars or constellations, would it really serve you to just observe them? Maybe, maybe not. Could you track their movements
For sure.
and see if they shifted? Could you build
Yes.
something?
Yes.
Could you teach yourself things?
Absolutely.
So all
There's
these are
choices that you can-
possibilities.
yeah.
And even within yourself, as we've talked about, source and infinite and the rest of these things, there's an essence, there's a light that's beyond physical reality.
Mhm.
Consciousness, subconsciousness is beyond that observes those things. So if you can find that aspect of yourself, what can you create from there? What can you flow from there? What can you experience from there?
It's infinite.
I agree. How do we bring infinite into the finite? Into physicality?
Well, a good starting point would be in a circle. And then from there. But in terms of what you mean, the physics of it?
Sure.
Sorry, I was thinking of football. Crazy conversations.
Right up his alley.
So no, your last name's Flores, right? I don't have a last name. Flores, flower, right? Oh yeah, floor.
So we're given these tools, we're given these experiences, and while it allows our physical bodies to rest for the most part, it's also applicable to our daily lives, and our daily lives are applicable to our dream states, and our emotional state, and our feeling state.
I think Ramon is a perfect example to bring up. Whether I believe his story of origin or not, which I don't really know his story of origin. Who does?
Right.
Who's?
Ramon Flores.
Mhm.
Works at Water Wellness Center.
Oh.
And is also does light flower
Is he the
training.
younger gentleman?
He's a big guy.
Yep.
And yeah,
Okay.
around one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
He's not that young, but he really looks it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Compared to what he says, he looks 50, and that's quite younger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've tried to subtly catch him up. Like if somebody wants to make a claim, and I've been well versed, or I'd like to think I've been well versed in deception enough to know when somebody's speaking out of ego, delusion, or a word I picked up from I don't remember his name in the reference. Conditioning.
Okay.
Conditioning. I don't get that from him.
Okay.
I can't really call on any filters or conditioning or whatnot.
So you get that he's authentic.
Yeah, I know I have conditioning, and I've spoken out of conditioning and levels of conditioning, but I still remain me, but he still has his own core identity and energy and so forth. I don't come in one day and he's split off in another personality.
Right.
Yeah. A leaf in the wind kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So people in our lives like that can give us examples of ways that maybe we want to interact or we want to experience ourselves. So could be useful.
Very much.
And we can also be that person in other people's lives.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
And this is really what what the whole idea behind the emotional ThinkTanks is about, is to come up with practical solutions for the emotional side of life, the feeling side of life, the non-tangible side of life, everything that goes on after that happened.
Yeah.
or before that
Or
happened,
before that.
or while it's happening.
Okay.
So everything that goes on with that experience. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I guess that was the most liberating part of probably that experience, is just the knowing that you can kind of return to the microcosm and experience your own mortality.
Mhm.
And so that there's that wonderful sort of freedom that's gained where you can um you can recreate and or create. And so just I guess kind of the embracing of this constant shift and moving, ebbing and forward, so that there's a sense of that within the core self, you how you would like to express that core self or be in that core self
Mhm.
for yourself and for others.
Mhm.
Can be infinite. It's not necessarily defined by one particular way.
Right.
So you can just go back to the circle and then go, sort of stretch out from there.
Mhm.
I don't
Cool.
know if that really makes sense, but
Does it make sense to you?
interesting.
Cool. Good start, right? And if it doesn't make sense to somebody else, could that be as much about them as the way that you delivered it? Could they be thinking about a response to what you're saying? Could they be doing something other than participating in your reality at that moment? That kind of stuff?
Well, if I'm choosing to speak verbally or communicate verbally, I mean, certainly I have my end.
Mhm.
To make sure to try to express that as clearly as I can.
Okay.
But beyond that, you gotta let it go at some point.
Sure. I agree. You got anything to add?
Cool shirt.
Thanks.
I know, huh? I meant to say that. It's perfect for the class.
Right? It's like I knew.
Right.
You got anything to add? No? You're complete? Cool. So we're all complete?
That was quite a journey. Thank you.
Awesome. Namaste. Honor that within you, which is also within me.
Thank you to everyone. It was fun.
Right?
That was very fun.
A little trot down the rabbit hole.